Okay, we're going to go over some review problems at the start, stuff we've done before. This does tie into the actual new lesson of what we're doing. Okay, here we've done adding, subtracting, and multiplying polynomials. We are going to do division today, and something called synthetic division is how you want to divide polynomials. Now let's do some brief operations with them. So this is addition, I'm adding them. So I want to separate each polynomial into terms. So that's x third, x negative 4x, 2x to the third, negative 4x second, positive 3x, and the constant negative 6. Then in my other polynomial I have x third, and then negative 5x and plus 6. Now when you add and subtract, you know what the degree is of the operation right away. Okay, since x third is the highest degree x has, so we know that the end result, my new polynomial, is also going to be x third. Okay, that's a done deal. So x squared, that's not, in multiplication, that's not how it's going to work, obviously down here, but plus a constant. Okay, so x third, we got a 2 and a 6, so 2 plus 6 is 8. X squared, you got negative 4x squared, and that's it. So negative 4x squared is your only x squared. Okay, then the x's, you got positive 3, negative 5, that's going to be negative 2. And then the constants, negative 6, positive 6 is 0, so I would just negate that, and there won't be a constant, so that's going to be your final answer. Okay, in the first polynomial, you got 3 to the second and the constant negative 8. Now, when you have subtraction, what you want to do is distribute that minus as a negative into everything in the second polynomial. So you're going to separate, you got 4n cubed, positive 1n squared, negative 15n plus 1. But we're going to rewrite that as addition, which means everything in the second quantity or the second polynomial, every term is going to change to the opposite. So it's negative 4. Negative 1, positive 15, negative 1. Okay, so within the whole problem, n cubed is your highest degree. You only have one term that has n cubed, but that is still your highest degree. So blank n cubed, and that's going to be negative 4. Okay, then it descends, n squared, so it's going to be 3 and negative 1. We add those, that's 2. Okay, the n is just your 15, positive 15. Then your constant is negative 8, negative 1, which is going to make negative 9. Okay, so subtraction is not all that different. Multiplication, you don't really know your degree till after you've distributed everything out. So you're only dealing with 2 terms in the second polynomial. So that means you got to distribute every term. This is basically the FOIL. Okay, except this is x third instead of x, so it's not going to be just x squared, x constant. So we got to multiply the 4x cubed twice because there's 2 terms, and the positive 2, the constant 2, by 2 terms. So times 1x times negative 6 times 1x times negative 6. Okay, remember how to multiply variables. You got x third, and this would be x to the first, so you got to add the exponents on those x's to make, that's how you multiply variables. You add your exponents. Then you multiply 4 times 1, that's 4. Okay, here you just got the x to the third, so that's not added to anything. And then you take 4 times negative 6, that's negative 24. Okay, here you just got an x, and 2 times 1 is 2. And then here you have a constant, that's negative 12. Now, none of these are the same. Okay, none of the x degrees ended up the same, which is kind of odd, but it does happen. X fourth, x third, x, there is no x second, and then negative 12. So you can just write them horizontally. 4x fourth, and then you can either write minus 24x third or plus negative 24x third. Either way is good. Then plus 2x, and either plus negative 12 or minus 12. Okay, either way is fine. Okay, so that's your 3 operations, but now division. Division's kind of funky a little bit. Okay, here's the first thing. To divide these, in division, you can actually, the way we're going to do it today, you can actually set up your answer from the get-go. So you get your polynomial, 3x to the third, positive 5x squared, negative 11x, and plus 6. And you're dividing that by x minus 2. Okay, you can I wouldn't put the 1 in front of that x in the second one. Any x in here without a coefficient, you're going to want to apply a 1. But anything, by the way, there's terminology for this. The polynomial you have before the division, that's called your dividend. Dividend, and x minus 2, that's called your divisor. Don't get too hung up on the terms for that, the vocab, but that is what it's called. Now you're taking an a degree polynomial that's of a degree x third, and you're dividing it by one that's a degree x. So what that'll do is it'll take your degree from an x third to an x second. Then there'll be an x, then there'll be a constant. Then this space here is known as your remainder. Please put r right there. Okay, so there's going to be, now sometimes your remainder is 0, which means you don't have a remainder. That means it's an even, what we call factor. But we just let the situation. Now here's how you set up your division. Okay, it's unlike anything you've done so far. You make kind of this L. This is called synthetic division. That's the name of it. There's also a long division strategy, which we are not going to do today. Synthetic's much easier, and it's much more applicable as we move on to other things past today. Okay, here's what you do. You take every coefficient in the dividend. You don't put the x, but you got to be careful. You're going to create a line. So you got x thirds your degree, and that has a 3 in front of it. Now, do you see x second? Yes, you do. Positive 5. Don't put x's on here, just the coefficients. Then after x second would go x, so it would be negative 11. And then a constant would be 6. Now you're going to see in the next problem it skips. There is no x second. You'll have to accommodate that as we move it. Now here's how that's your dividend. Here's how you find this out. You're going to put a number outside here. And it's very easy to find. You just set your x minus 2 equal to 0. Just add 2, and there is no multiply. So it's just x equals 2. Okay. Now sometimes this x will have a coefficient on it. We will see, and there's something you're going to have to do differently. But for now, it's not a fraction. It's just 2. Okay. Now here's how you want to lay this out. You want to drop this 3 down. Okay. You got to carry that first number down. Then you got to add a number to all these. Okay. So you drop 3 down. Every number you drop down, you have to multiply it by the outside. So you take 3 times 2. Anything that goes down here has to be multiplied. So 3 times 2 is 6, and you add 6 to 5. 5 plus 6 is 11. Okay. Then 11 times 2. 11 times 2 is 22. So I add 22 to negative 11. Negative 11 plus 22 is 11. Okay. We take 11 times 2, and we got 22, okay? And that's 28. Now you just lay them in. You now have 3x to the second, okay? 11x, 11 constant, and the remainder is 28, but here's how you got to put 28, okay, on this exercise here. You put 28, and you make a fraction, and under the fraction, you put the divisor expression, x minus 2, okay? That's how we got to write that. Because we got a remainder, that means this is not an even factor of this. Okay. So that's how you're going to divide. All right, next problem. So this was an x, and I'm going to write the answer down here. So it was an x fourth. Well, when you divide by x, it goes to x third. So there'll be an x third, an x squared, then an x, then a constant, then a possible remainder. Okay, so that's why it looks like there's 2 constants, but this is your constant, this is your remainder. All right, so you line up your terms. So x to the fourth, you got 2. What do you have for x to the third? There it is, negative 3. If you want to cut the terms up, you can. Okay, I would just do it in the dividend. I wouldn't bother doing it in the divisor. Okay, so 2, negative 3. What's your x second? You don't have an x second, but you have to account for the degree, okay? So you notice, I'll even write a note here, x third, x second, x constant. Here, the dividend, it skips x to the second. So that means when you go x third 2, x third negative 3, you have to count for x second with a 0, okay? And then x would be 5, and then negative 12. So that means that degree has to be accounted for with the 0. Then outside here, x plus, it's just the opposite of x plus 1, really. It's what would ever make that 0, so negative 1, okay? Okay, so we would not have dropped the 2, and that will be a 2x to the third. Okay, then we've got to add to the rest of these. So 2 times negative 1 is negative 2. That's negative 5. Negative 5 times negative 1 is 5. 0 plus 5 is 5. 5 times negative 1 is negative 5. Then I'm at 0. Keep going. 0 times negative 1 is 0. And you got negative 12 as your remainder. Okay, so you got negative 5 as your x second. 5 is your x. You actually don't, if you have a 0, just erase the term or get rid of it. Okay, and you do have that remainder, negative 12. So you got to put negative 12 over the expression x plus 1. Okay, that's how that's going to be written. So 2x cubed, negative 5 minus 5x second plus 5x, and then minus 12 over x plus 1. Just have them get it to that. We're good. Okay, this one's kind of weird here. So it's an x fourth, so it'll go to an x third, x second, x, constant, and then the possible remainder. Okay, now here's the deal though. You got 1 for x fourth, but it skips a bunch of degrees. It skips x third, it skips x second, it skips x. It does have the constant at least. So after you got 1, you got to put 0 for x third, 0 for x second, 0 for x, and then negative 16 for your constant. I know that feels kind of weird. That's kind of why I put it as an example. So x minus 2 equals 0. So plus 2 plus 2. Okay. Okay, so you're going to have 2, drop your 1, and then we got to add to the rest of these. Okay. So 1 times 2 is 2. 0 plus 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 0 plus 4 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 0 plus 8 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16, and I get a remainder of 0. Okay, so you got 1, 2, 4, 8, and you don't have a remainder. Okay, so you're done. You don't make the fraction. So 1x cubed plus, that means this is an even factor. Okay, that means if you took these 4 terms and multiplied them by these 2 terms, you would end up with this. A bunch of stuff would cancel out along the way. Okay, but that's your answer. Okay, now we have to be careful on this one. You're going to line up your see if it skips anything. So it's going to go x squared, okay, x, because it was x third, so now it's going to go to x squared, x, then the constant, then the remainder. Just put an r up there. You make a fraction right now if you need, and you can put 2x plus 3 under that if you want. Okay, because you know kind of what goes under it, if it exists. Okay, does it skip any degrees? X third, x second, nope, no degrees. So 2, I don't need any zeros. 3, there's nothing it skips. Okay, but the question is, there's 2x plus 3. Okay, now this is kind of weird a little bit. You need to subtract 3, okay, which is negative 3, but then you need to put it as negative 3 over 2 because you divide by 2. If you want to put the decimal, you can, but here's the deal. I would just keep it as the fraction. Now, whenever you got a fraction sitting out there, we didn't have that on the first 3, but whenever you have a fraction right here, you're going to have to divide everything you come up with by 2 right here, okay, before you put them into your new polynomial. I'll explain that here in a second, okay? Okay, so I carry down the 2. You can use your calculator. 2 times negative 3 halves is going to be negative 3. Pluses. Okay, add that to 0. 0 times that, 0. Negative 8 plus 0 is negative 8. Okay, and you get a remainder of 0. Okay, now the problem is you can't, when you have the fraction, you have to divide by whatever the denominator is, all of these, okay? So you divide 2 by 2, okay? So the whole thing I need to divide, but if there was a remainder, I'd also have to divide it by 2. And I'm going to explain here in a second why, if that's a 5 down there, you're going to have to divide by 5, okay? You come up with it the same way. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 0 divided by 2 would stay 0, which means we wouldn't need this. And you divide -8 by 2, and that's -4. And then the 0 is a remainder, so I don't need that. So really the answer is just 1x squared minus 4. Now, let me explain why you have to divide it by 2. So remember, 2x plus 3. That means 2x plus 3 times my answer should be this. Okay? See, if I wouldn't have to divide it by 2, I'd have 2x squared minus 8. Okay? When I did divide it by 2, I have 1x squared and -4. Only one of these is going to multiply out to these 4 terms, and it ain't going to be this one. Okay? See, if I do the FOIL, that's going to be 4x cubed. You don't need to write this down, but that's going to be -16x. It's going to be positive 6x squared, and then -24. Now, we'd have this, they're all different, but that is not even close to your dividend, okay? See, this times your answer has to multiply to your dividend. It's just like 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 2 times 3 is 6. But if I multiply this, that's going to be 2x cubed, -8x, positive 3x squared, and -12, and those are the 4 terms that make up the dividend. So that's why when you have a fraction, after you get done with it, you have to divide by the denominator, okay? Only if there's a fraction. So the answer is 1x squared plus -4. I know that looks sloppy, but that's good enough. Okay, now the next part's real easy, okay? This is kind of the second part. Then there's a story problem where you're kind of doing what you just did. This is a function, 2x to the third minus 5x squared plus 7x minus 9. If you divide that, they just want to know the remainder. They don't need to know the whole quotient. Now, I could do this the long way like I did on the first page, but there's another way you can get your remainder. And that's simply to set this equal to 0. And then I'm going to do a direct substitution into the function with 4. So I'm going to put f parentheses 4. And that means on the other side, 2 parentheses caret 3 to the third minus 5 parentheses second power plus 7 parentheses minus 9. All that means is I plug 4 in, and whatever the output is the remainder. Okay, that's the relationship of what this is called the remainder theorem. That doing a direct substitution can generate your remainder. So 2 times 4 to the power of 3, caret 3, minus 5, parentheses 4, caret 2, plus 7, parentheses 4, minus 9. 67 is your remainder, okay? So that's how to get, now if you had to know the whole answer like I expected you to on the first exercise that I just went over, okay, you'd have to do the synthetic division, okay? But if you're just interested in the remainder at the end of the division, okay, again, so x plus put equals 0 and just subtract 2, so you do a direct substitution of -2. So instead of fx, it's f -2, and what that means is all the x's are replaced with the common value -2, okay? So -2 caret 4 minus 3, -2 plus 1, and that's 23, okay? So remainder at the end would have been 23. Okay, so equals 0 on that because that is your divisor. Okay, so f of 6, that means all the x's get, again, if you want to put a 1 in front of that, you can, okay, you don't have to, minus parentheses plus 3, and all those x's go to 6. If you want to put 1s in front of the parentheses, you can, you don't really have to. So 5 parentheses 6 to the third power. Plus, you can put a 1, but if you just want to go with roll with 6, it's the same thing, multiplying by 1. Some people like the coefficient, some people don't. Wow, that's wild. 1,113 is your remainder. Okay, so, yeah. Remember, remainder 0, that means that's an actual factor that can be multiplied to reach that exactly. If you get remainders, that means there is no other factor that you can multiply by x minus 4 to multiply to exactly. Okay, now there is a story problem at the end. Okay. A truck traveled 6x to the third plus x, if you want to put the 1 there, be my guess, you're going to need to eventually 6x cubed plus 1x second plus 20x minus 11 miles. That's also expressed as distance in 2x minus 1 hours. That's known as the time. At what rate did the truck travel? Finding the r. So, first off, let's take our formula, distance equals rate times time. If I need to solve for the r, I want to get this r by itself and divide by the t, okay? So then r is by itself, the t's cancel, and you have d divided by t. Okay, now we're going to put the distance expression up top, 6x third plus 1x second plus 20x minus 11. And then the time expression, 2x minus 1, goes on the bottom. Now, you're going to set up synthetic division. Top's your dividend, bottom's your divisor. So, any degrees get skipped on top, x third, x second, x constant. Nope. So 6, 1, 20, negative 11. Okay, but on the bottom, x has a coefficient multiplier, so add 1, but it's going to have to be 1 over 2 out there, okay? And you know what that means. That means you're going to have to divide all this stuff by 2 at the end before you write your final answer. Now, the answer is going to go from x third to x second. X second, x, plus a constant, plus another space for your remainder. Just put it down there, okay? Because I'm dividing, it goes from x third, x second. So it's positive 1 over 2. That just means you got to divide by 2 at the end. Okay, so I carry down my 6, and I need to add to the rest. Okay, 6 times 1 ABC2 is 3. That's 4. 4 times 1 ABC2 is 2. It's 22. 22 times 1 ABC2 is 11, and there's your 0. Okay. So you do have a remainder of 0. So that means, okay, you got to still divide by 2 though, okay? So 6 divided by, because you had a fraction, that'll tell you what you got to divide by. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 4 divided by 2 is 2. And then 22 divided by 2 is 11. The remainder we can erase or cross out, okay? So that's your answer. That means if you take these 3 terms times 2x minus 1, okay, and multiply it out, you will get exactly this. And the reason you know you will is because the remainder was 0.